So after trying potato gnocchi a few times in the past, I kept ending up with a sticky mess. But the other day I managed this. First up, I preheated the oven, then put a bunch of potatoes on a rack that I had sat over a baking tray. I popped the potatoes in the oven for around 45 minutes to an hour. Meanwhile, I set about making the tomato sauce. It's a pretty basic one. I just added some oil to a pan and sauteed off some shallots for a few minutes along with some garlic and cooked it until both were softened. Then, for a kick, I added some red pepper flakes, some tomato puree for depth, and lastly some plum tomatoes, which I crushed by hand. Yes, internet folk, I washed my hands. By now the potatoes were done, and when I stabbed them with a knife there was little to no resistance. Once I'd riced all of my potatoes in an even layer across the worktop, I left them to steam further for a few minutes. I sifted flour all over the potatoes and then using a bench scraper I chopped down repeatedly. Then I gathered up the potato mass into a loose ball and pressed it into shape. I folded it in half and pressed it again until it was properly mixed up. Eventually I ended up with a potato log. Slice off inch thick portions and form them into doughy snakes, about half an inch thick. Cut the snakes into 1 inch portions, shape with a cool little gnocchi board if you got one, and transfer to a baking sheet. Bring a well salted pot of water to the boil, transfer the gnocchi to the water as fast as you can. Once the gnocchi starts to float, wait about 20 seconds and then remove them. I added chopped basil to my sauce and a touch of gnocchi water to correct the consistency. I wasn't sure how the gnocchi would hold up, so I added some to this pan and added the sauce to it, gradually adding the rest of the gnocchi until eventually pouring back into my cast iron dish. I added chunks of Nduja as well as torn mozzarella to the top of the gnocchi before throwing it in the oven. I cooked this for about half an hour at 180°C.